Did Iran kill its own schoolgirls? That's going to be our question today, although we're not really going to try and answer that question. We are instead going to tell you how you can go about answering these kind of questions yourself, should you come across them. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. Yeah.
Doing better now that I'm not making you film these at midnight in your time?
I feel so much more awake.
Yeah, so we moved to this new time so that one, Sarah could be more awake, and then two, let's just kind of condense it into the workday if possible. So again, Sarah's on the other side of the world right now. Our happy hour version of that was making her be out at 1 a.m. or possibly 2 a.m. It would have been coming up because of the time change. Or no, it wouldn't, because I was going to change my time. Yeah. Anyway, either way, not a problem. So now this is going to be 11 a.m. on Wednesdays for the live feed. And then we're going to push it to YouTube today. So it'll be up a little bit earlier on YouTube as well. All right. So again, today we're talking about information verification. And we're talking about, our example is going to be fog of war, ground truth about the school bombing in Iran, right? And again, this could be about any topic. What we're trying to figure out here is when you have a lot of information and some of it has to be either misinformation or disinformation because there's conflicting stories. How do you go about identifying what this person is saying and how likely it is to be the truth? Right, Sarah?
Right. And then also in the larger picture, how does that one story fit into the larger information environment as it impacts cognitive security? Because what has happened, especially with AI and all this emerging technology, is you have disinformation, misinformation, perception management campaigns, inauthentic actors, and it all, combined can make it very confusing to any population to figure out what is actually happening. So.
Right. Okay, so just a little introduction first to the story, and then we will show you the actual article we're going to focus on. And this is something that we're doing that's kind of new as well. We're going to focus on one main article and just keep referring back to that instead of being kind of a clip show. Although we still will have a lot of URLs for you because we're going to show you kind of some of the tools and the methods you might use to go and research this one influencer, right? Okay, so first of all, a little intro to the question or the story that we're getting from the influencer. And it comes in the form of a YouTube short.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on First Post.
Oh my goodness. I don't know why.
You did talk about protecting the Iranian people and effectively freeing them from this oppressive regime of the Ayatollah. Now, one pushback against that argument has been the strike that happened, alleged strike that happened at an Iranian school where the government claims more than 100 girls were killed. What is the Israeli government and the military saying about that alleged strike?
We believe that strike, unfortunately, was done by the Islamic Republic. This is part of their propaganda. We've seen it, of course, with Hamas, who killed a lot of their own people, including children. This is part of Islamist propaganda. Israel and the United States never would target a school. And so the information that I have so far, and again, it's not been 100% confirmed, that this is something the Iranian people, the Islamic regime have done to their own people so that the media makes Israel and America look bad.
So again, that's kind of an introduction to the stories that are coming across. So there's stories from every angle, of course. Islamic Republic is saying Americans or Israelis did it. Israel is saying we would never do that. And I do believe that cognitively, no one would bomb a school. Even the Iranian, I wouldn't think they'd do their own, but what do you think, Sarah?
Well, this example was interesting because one of the things that it shows is you can't pull information when it's really early on in the news cycle. So like when you had the 1985 Oklahoma City bombing, one of the initial gut reactions to that, it was to blame, did I get the year wrong?
You said 85, I think, but
okay. So the initial reaction to that was that it was Muslim terrorists, and that was broadcast all over the news. And when I got a phone call to be on a local news station on their broadcast, a radio broadcast, I said, there's not enough information out yet to show that this was Muslim terrorists. There's more information is needed to confirm what actually happened. And this clip, it is an example of that concept, that this was on the first day, it was broadcast on the first day, there wasn't a lot of information in. So you had somebody who really went, wholehearted with their emotions and said, this is what happened, and they didn't have the facts to support it.
Yeah, and I think that that is something that news organizations really want to get the first word. They want to be the first person to put that out, put the information out about it. But again, it really needs to be caveated with this. It's really early. We don't have like full information yet. And whoever you ask, they're of course the very first thing they're going to react it is it's not our problem, or it's not necessarily our problem, but not our fault, or
Right.
try to play it toward them. I mean, it doesn't matter what the news story is. If you ask, as soon as like something happens to me and you ask me, did you do this? I'm going to be, wait, how could I have done it? Because the information's not in it. I don't know that it was an accidental, thing that happened because of something I had done earlier. Who knows, right? Point is, too early.
Yeah. And one other thing I wanted to bring up about that is it's actually natural reaction to believe that if you see or perceive someone as a negative or adversarial actor, that they will be doing adversarial activities. So post September the 11th, 2001, there were many abhorrent and horrible things that Al-Qaeda did. But there were also stories that got published on some things that Al-Qaeda didn't do that were disinformation saying that they did. So again, you have to be able to weed out which ones are true and which ones are, just a gut reaction to things.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Okay, so that was our little teaser, our appetizer. But our main article today is going to be, it said that you are on the internet trying to figure out stuff about this, and you're browsing Reddit, right? I love Reddit, and I hate Reddit, but I love Reddit, I do. And I'm going to share this tab. And you see this one: the school airstrike is probably exaggerated or fake so that the Iranian government gets sympathy from Westerners. And maybe this is not a major influencer. Maybe you don't know this person, but maybe this thing's getting a lot of upvotes, a lot of whatever, and it's the one that jumps into your attention first, and you think, oh my gosh, maybe it is the Iranian government.
Right.
Sarah, do you want to summarize this a little bit?
Well, essentially, this individual made a post that they believed that the Iranian government bombed their own girls' school. And that the Iranian government was putting out propaganda on it, and wholeheartedly might have believed that. We don't know, actually, because the actor is opaque, so we don't know if this is like an influence activity or if this is just somebody's sentiment. That's something you would have to actually research or delve into deeper.
Which we're going to kind of do.
Yeah, and we're going to kind of do that today. But essentially, they have a very strong political opinion. They've stated it. They believe that it's the Iranian government. And some of the comments have stated that they believe that, agreed with the author and said, wholeheartedly agree with you. And then others have disagreed with it. There were several things.
Out something here is that they actually give some sources to back information up. Now, one thing that I want to highlight, and this is for everywhere, when you see a source, we're evaluating sources a lot of times now, especially in the days of AI. So say that this person posts this information up, we evaluate them as a source, which we're going to do here. But you got to also evaluate the sources that they put in there, because they may put a legitimate article in there, but doesn't say necessarily what they say that it says. And there's a lot of people who do information operations who actually do this exact technique. They'll say, look at this article, look at this article, look at this article. They all support my point of view. And when you really look into those articles, they don't necessarily. Now, I'm not saying that these articles don't support this person's point of view. Clearly, the Iran one is not going to support their point of view, et cetera. But maybe they don't say exactly, or they're interpreting these articles in a different way than you would. So it is important to check that out. And it wouldn't matter if it's AI. If AI is giving you links again, go look at the articles, because the AI might misinterpret it, or the AI might hallucinate it. So
Right, and actually, the this whole conflict scenario, with including the girls' school incident, there has been conflicting AI information provided from
we'll
summaries.
get a little later, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and some of the AI models actually have corrected themselves. So the reason for that is that the AI, one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons for that is that the AI models that are pulling data, the ones that are pulling news articles, they're getting that same flawed data. If it's early in the news cycle and the news cycle has flawed data, the AI model might be also summarizing flawed data.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about AI a little bit later, but one of the other things that when you see AI correct itself, though, also, I read something yesterday or the day before where the idea is that you ask one AI something, and then it gives you an answer, and then you say, "Well, I found this out here," and they say, "Oh, you're absolutely correct. I messed that up." In some cases, the AI is just trying to be a people pleaser. So also, if you can go into your AI and tell it to stop being such a people pleaser, or even put that into your queries. But anyway, moving on from AI, we'll come back to it. All right, so we have this article, and we want to say, okay, who is our person who wrote this article, right? Or who wrote this post, and are they influencer ops? This is what they believe? Is this absolutely the truth? All that information, we're going to start evaluating that source, and that source for us is the user who posted this named Gladius Equitas. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but anyway, you all know I don't pronounce things correctly, and I apologize. But anyway, let's go look at their page on Reddit. So Reddit usually doesn't have very robust pages out there. They don't usually, have like a big bio on them. They could. You can absolutely put a bio on your page, but this is an example of like very little on a Reddit page, right? We know that this person has posts, but this person keeps their posts hidden. Honestly, we saw the post, so we're going to unhide the post in a way, right? But a couple other things I want to point out about this person is that their Reddit age is 6 months. So this is a fairly new Reddit account. They've got some achievements. So they've got the 100-day streak. They've got a couple other things, and 734 more. So they've been busy, very, very busy in the last 6 months. And 11,000 karma, that's still pretty good for 6 months, and not necessarily a karma farmer. Sarah, do you know what a karma farmer is?
No.
Okay. So it's kind of like the influencers on TikTok or Instagram. It's somebody who tries to get famous fast on Reddit, or at least authoritative fast by having lots of karma. And so a karma farmer usually will come in, and 6-month-old karma farmer might have 100,000 karma, might have a lot more.
Gotcha.
A normal person who's not posting a lot, just like your average user, I think 6 months will have very little karma.
Okay.
A little bit here and there. But this person actually has a lot for just an average person, but not enough to be a bot or a karma farmer, in my opinion. So that kind of tells me a little bit about this person. Now, before we even go into more about this, which I know Sarah's really ready to jump in on that username and that sort of thing. Before we do that, I do want to highlight my first tool that I almost always use on any user in Reddit is going to be a tool called Reddit Metis. And I want to show you this tool. I love this tool so much. Now, this one, in this case, really doesn't have as much detail as it should, because, again, our person hid their comments on the profile. Their comments are public. We're still going to be able to get all their comments and their posts. But because it's hidden on their profile, this tool only goes to the profile and just kind of goes through the profile and pulls out, what information it can. And so it does have limited information because the profile itself is limited. However, Reddit Metis should be the first tool you go to when you have a Reddit user you want to evaluate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So we can't use Reddit Metis in this case, though, because they have a private account. So why is this search going to be useful for us, for somebody who has a private account, Sarah? So the search is site:/reddit.com space, and in quotes, the username.
Well, I mean, there's a few things you could do here. The first is you can take the screen name and you can pop it into something like "What's my name?"
Well, Sarah.
Yeah, but before that, doing it, it's good to know when the name comes across as something that is not a real name. So in this instance, this is not John Smith. This is not, there's lots of people named John Smith.
Sarah,
This is
can I put your brakes on for a minute? You're ahead of me. You're ahead of me.
Oh, sorry.
All I'm doing right now is showing you can get that user's content on Reddit by just doing the site on Reddit.
Yes.
So even though their stuff on their profile is hidden, you can still get almost everything that they've said unless they're in a secret subreddit.
Okay, I went too fast. But yes. Yeah. So essentially, not just using very advanced search operators, what you're doing is you're pulling the other posts that person might have on Reddit or where they've commented. So, and this works well on Google, and also it works well on Kaggle. I prefer Kaggle over Google, but I will sometimes use both because there is a cross-comparative difference in the number of results and the quality of results that you will get from a domain research, like a restricted domain search on Kaggle and Google. So if I want to double check and make sure that I'm getting as much data as I can about a particular actor on that domain, I will actually use both. But I will use Google and CASM in an isolated environment. And the reason that I do that is because Google has a high amount of user collection, and I want to protect my identity when I'm doing these kind of searches on Google. Whereas if I'm on Kaggle, which is more it's more privacy forward, and it doesn't actually maintain my queries, then I might not, I'm not using CASM. I'm going on Kaggle and I'm looking up the same thing.
Okay, so now we went off into like this weird thing, but I want to highlight really quickly. CASM is an isolation environment for operational security. So it's kind of like a virtual machine, only it's cloud-based and really cool. We really suggest it. But I want to highlight that your security level, Sarah, for this is different than everybody else's.
Yes,
I don't think that everybody needs to go and use Google on CASM. I think you can use Google on your machine. I think you can use Google on your machine with your own Gmail account. Like look at, you can see right now my little face right here. I'm not worried about this search unless I go and kill Gladius Acutus, and then law enforcement pulls us up and notices that I'm stalking them, right? Okay, so that's not going to be the case. So if there's a way to deal with your own OPSEC. Maybe this is another one. Sarah, hold on. This is going to be another case in the future or something like that. But Sarah goes to the extreme. She keeps everything really tight. You need to do a little proportional evaluation of yourself and identify what needs to be kept private, what doesn't, and how much effort is it worth to make everything private, because there is a trade-off between how much work you're going to get done.
Right. And so if you have this as like an actual collection requirement, and let's say the collection requirement is sensitive, at that point, you want to use CASM. If you do not care that Google is going to maintain your profile and the data of your queries, then you can go straight to Google.
And there's middle grounds as well, Sarah, though, because
I was about to say
on my computer. Yeah, that's not my investigation computer. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say middle grounds. Okay. But there are things in between that you can do as well that are different kind of levels. So you have to look at it as a recipe as far as what you need for your OPSEC. I personally don't like Google collecting my data. So that's just me. The other thing that goes with this is that both Google and Kaggle might not be your two only options for dorking. And so you can also look at alternate search engines as well.
Bing and DuckDuckGo are a couple good ones.
Yeah.
Funny enough, Bing and DuckDuckGo query the same database, but they use a different algorithm against it. And yeah, but one more thing I want to mention with this stuff that we're talking about, this proportionality of what you're keeping secret and how to deal with that. That kind of is a point of my upcoming cohort. So if you're interested in that, we will put the link in the show notes, and actually, yeah, we'll get them in the show notes. But we do have a cohort coming up, which is a limited number class where maximum of 10 people, I don't know, between 3 and 10 people, whatever we end up with. And we're going to really dive in an hour or two a week, homework and meeting, and really dive into what we need to keep secret, and 2, how to evaluate and create a framework and a workflow of evaluating tools against our need to keep things, secure, private, etc. So that coming up, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to support that, what you was just talking about, because when you're looking at your plan and what you're doing, there is such a different, you kind of look at it as like a Likert scale. Like a Likert scale is a good example. So there are people that, they would just go into Google and it's fine for them that Google is collecting their information and it's not a problem because for them it's not contentious. Somebody, if they're looking up a sensitive collection requirement, it's different. But you do have that space in between. And you have to consider, everything from what time you're pulling the information to the tooling, which is what this seminar is going to be stressing, and what level of vetting you need for that tool. And it absolutely will differ depending on what your process or your collection plan is.
Right, and so that cohort's all about creating it for yourself, identifying what your needs are, and then creating your whole structure for yourself. It could be for your whole organization, it could be just for you, but it would make things much faster for you to evaluate tools and decide rather than, oh, so-and-so's using this tool, I guess I'll use this as well.
Right, yeah.
Okay, let's go back to Gladius Acutus.
Yes.
All right, so now we see Gladius Acutus working on Reddit. We see all the posts that they have on Reddit. Before we move on to like searching them anywhere else around the internet, I do want to highlight that the Gladius Acutus, as Sarah was mentioning before, may mean something, right? It might mean something specific. One thing you can do if you want to is check out our subculture lingo search. And that's in our resources. So if you go to our resources, you'll see our search CSEs and AI GPTs. And these are just, I make a ton of both, but these are the ones we're kind of proud of at the moment, right? And anyway, our subculture lingo search, because we do have a whole subculture course as well, but our search engine here is just a custom Google search engine that searches subculture dictionaries and things like that. So if we think, okay, I don't understand this at all, I'm going to throw this into a subculture lingo search thing to see if somewhere there's some subculture where that is really, really meaning a lot. Now, it turns out there kind of is a subculture, but it's not the type that my internet search will find, right? So for example, here is my subculture search. It didn't really didn't find anything for it, but there is stuff out there, right, Sarah?
Yes.
So if you're just gonna search just in general, we find out it's Latin for sharp sword or pointed sword, right, Sarah?
Right. Yep.
Okay, now we're gonna go to the Google Translate link. So Sarah did find a source for this having to do with some Bible study tools. So this is a part of the verse in the Bible. Sarah, do you want to go ahead and take it from here?
Well, I wanted to see if I wanted to see the context of how the screen name was used, like if it had a particular meaning or if it had a particular slant to it. And that might give, and not always, but it might give insights into behavior of the actor. So it might give, or their personality. In this instance, what I found is I found references of this name or phrase in the Bible. And then I also found it being discussed in Warhammer in gaming communities. So that would be two competing hypotheses of possibly linking to that person's personality, which helps you profile who that online actor is. And then you add it with other information to then build a bigger, biodata of that profile.
And to kind of jump off of that, then I threw it into AI and asked AI, in this case Gemini, to help me with the information about it, what it meant, but also kind of some of the other possible information. This is brainstorming using AI, and I think brainstorming using AI is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yep. So we will talk more about AI in a minute as well. Yep. All right. Now, Sarah, you pulled up this tweet. What was the tweet about?
Yes. So this was one of the comments. So whenever you're looking at a profile, like on this instance, the post, I was looking at the comments made to the post to see what the engagement was, whether there was a lot of engagement, how many people commented, how many people agreed with the post, how many people disagreed with the post as far as sentiment. So this is kind of like starting to do a little bit of manual versus automated sentiment analysis. And in this instance, this one popped out at me because the person posted a link of supportive evidence to their sentiment of agreeing with the commenter. And so I clicked on the link to see what it was, and it was a screenshot of a X post that supported the sentiment or the theme or narrative that Iran bombed its own school.
Right. And so this is, again, just like a screenshot from X. Before we move on, just remind me, and I apologize, I'm going to take a little bit of a side story for a minute. I want to shout out to Pamela Dean. She's out on LinkedIn, and she shared with me a new X tool, xcancel.com, which lets you look at X posts without having to log into X.
Oh,
anyway,
nice.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because it just occurred to me. I'm like, yes, we have actually a tool having to do with that. But all right, we're going to move on. So we also have the resource that we have for this next piece of information is the Wikipedia page for the READ technique. READ technique's an interrogation technique. Sarah, go ahead and explain the READ technique, and then we'll talk about why we think it's useful here.
Yes. Okay. So just one little background comment. I briefly worked on the enhanced analysis and interrogation training team at Fort Huachuca. I am not an interrogator, and I am not human. I just wanted to throw that disclaimer out there. Second, I have done contracts in support of information operations.
And let me put one more thing out there. We're not telling you to interrogate this guy. We're telling you to think this way.
Yeah, no interrogating. Okay. Yeah, OSINT is passive. It's not human. Those are two totally different things. But some of the techniques that are used in human in interrogation cross-apply to information operations and influence activities as far as tactics as it impacts cognitive security or on how to persuade audiences. So this is a useful framework. The READ technique has the approaches. You can look at those and say, oh, this person is using this approach in this news article, and this is how they're persuading me. And that's a good thing to know, because a lot of times we have core beliefs and we have a tendency to agree with things that we already have a kind of a bias towards, and everybody has biases. I have a bias. Kirby has a bias. Everybody has a bias. So it's good to self-check and see, what you might be persuaded with in these posts to figure out if you're being manipulated or influenced. And so I broke down some of the more common techniques to discuss as far as how people are persuaded. The first is, and I took notes on this, but the first is appeal to authority. And a lot of times you'll see a news article and let's say, Dr. So-and-so said. Okay, one very useful technique in influence activities, malign influence activities, is that they will use the name of a doctor, but that doctor will have absolutely no relation to the topic that's being discussed. So they could say, Dr. Frank, who's a specialist on feet, discussing nuclear arms. At which point, is that an authoritative source? It's not. So you should always look at the article and say, okay, it's great that that person's doing an appeal to authority, but is that person actually an authority on that topic? And then the second is the person impersonating? Does that doctor even exist? And this is actually a flaw also as far as hallucinations in AI models, is sometimes you'll have an AI model that will cite an authority that is non-existent. And so it's really important to, if that is provided as a piece of information, is to double check it. And then anonymous authorities, and this is common tactic in disinformation. The Russians use it a lot, or they used to in their propaganda campaigns, is they would say, well, a head doctor, but they don't say the doctor's name. okay.
Leading scientist, a leading what?
Yes, exactly, a leading scientist. So that's a way for people to look at it, and a lot of human beings, we have a tendency to be persuaded by what we think is an authority, when in actuality it might not be. The second is appeal to family. You should believe this, or you should agree with this because it will protect your family. That's a common kind of technique that is used. And so if that's being done, timeshares are great at this. Like if you go to timeshare presentation, a lot of times the people presenting the timeshare will use appeal to family as far as a technique. Emotional hate is a big one that's used a lot right now, and with especially dividing people. So they'll try and foment hate from one group to another group. So in this instance, it's exploiting the audience's hatred towards someone or something, and being this case example, the Iranian regime. Are there reasons to hate the Iranian regime? Absolutely. I can understand why someone might hate them, but it does not necessarily mean that they blew up their own school. Those are
This
two
is what you're
separate.
saying earlier. You have already a negative view of somebody. It's more likely to.
Right, exactly. And also a lot of things that go, one of the other things that often goes along with appeal to emotional hate approach is an us versus them. That's a lot of times thrown in there too. Sympathetic appeals is another one. So a sympathetic appeal a lot of times is an article where they'll say, okay, I the author or I the source understand how you feel. I have sympathy for you. That right there, they're trying to pull at your heartstrings, right? The next one is downplaying the seriousness of the offense, or kind of hedging it off. It's like, okay, we hit a school, but we killed all these terrorists. So we killed 500 terrorists, so it's okay. We hit the school. And that would be a the next one is downplaying the seriousness of something that happens. Shifting the blame is related to that a lot of times, not always. But that implies that an audience or a presenter is not at fault, and that somebody else is. And that's very common. Politicians do it a lot. Not one country, but lots of countries. You'll see politicians doing that. Minimization is just saying, again, lowering the weight of the offense, and that actually also relates to extenuation. And then appeal to self-interest is a big one. You will save $10 million in gas money by doing this. That's a self-interest thing, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to save $10 million. So therefore I should agree with this. But in actuality, a lot of times you will have that as an appeal, but the evidence underneath won't be there. So it'll be used specifically as a propaganda technique, and then you have to look underneath and say, okay, am I really going to get $10 million? And there's tons of scams that use that as well online. Confrontation and competition, as far as, and this one can also include, in a way, coercion. So somebody might put online, oh, we are watching you. We're watching who's putting disparaging posts, and we're making a no-no list of those people. And we're going to say that they are all bad. They're all on the, Santa bad list. And then maybe there will be some inferred punishment that goes along with that. That's another common one as well. Pretense of evidence, pretending that they have evidence in a piece of propaganda. Okay.
And that was the link thing we were talking about. Like,
yes,
throw a bunch of links in there, but do they really say?
Yeah, absolutely. I have all these links, and then you're open them up, and it's like, wait a minute, this is how to make cupcakes. This has nothing to do with what I'm looking at.
Look at all these reports I have on my desk. Well, we can't
Right.
look at them because you're on the computer, and
Yeah. Or I have the list, and there's no compiled list. Bluff on a split pair, meaning like this group has betrayed you, when that person, that group culturally or ideologically might have originally been an ally or a perceived ally.
Mhm.
So these are actually, what would be used in human approaches, but they're cross-applicable to understanding propaganda as it relates to an individual's own cognitive security. And it's really important, I think, especially in today's environment, for people to look at how are they being persuaded in a social media post? How are they being persuaded in a news article? Is that substantial information or qualitative data actually under there, or is it an emotional appeal? So that's just kind of a framework for being able to do some of that self-assessment. And it's different than looking at what your cognitive biases are, which Kirby, I know, can go into, the cognitive biases really well.
Some of them are. They cross over a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, because you're looking at how the source of what you're assessing is persuading you with versus your own personal way that you're being persuaded. So what are they doing as a tactic? And I think that's important to gauge.
Mhm.
So, and the last part on that is just real quick is when you're looking at a news article or anything, a social media post, is there a desired effect? And this comes more from like the information operations field, is looking at what is the desired effect of a piece of presented information? Who's the targeted audience? Why is it there?
What emotions is it going
Yeah.
to, create?
Yeah, I mean, some things are put on social media just for rage bait.
Mhm.
The desired effect in and of itself is rage bait. And the reason that is a desired effect is because it increases audience participation, which increases the amount of money that social media platform gets. So.
It's a huge motivator for the major social media platforms. And that's why you see when you open up whatever platform of choice, you see a lot of stuff that's really going to like irk you first. Like, your best friend turns out they have this crazy, weird political opinion. And now you're like, which is why I step back from social media mostly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and sometimes I think that's an excellent point, Kirby, is when you look at something that might fit any of these categories, or if you're not sure if it fits one of those categories, is instead of having a gut reaction and reacting to something, it's good to step back and think about it and contemplate it before you post, or before you amplify it, or before you put it into a report.
Give it a day.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
yeah, excellent point.
Right. Okay. So moving on from the read technique, let's talk about like looking for other maybe authoritative sources. So you might just use your Google Docs and force the source to come from a specific resource. In this case, I just did a site:/gov, but it could be site:/state.gov, or it could be an education facility, or it could be a news website that you trust, or something like that. You can actually, rather than having to navigate to it or have it come across your feed in social media, look for it. Sarah?
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, and not just from one point of view, right? We might also even go and see, okay, what do the Iranians actually say? And so we'll look for their government websites. Now, this stuff's all in Farsi, so you might need to translate. Well, not all of it. I mean, the fact that we looked at it in English is going to tell us that there's some English content there. And of course, our snippet tells us a little bit as well. But some of it's going to be in Farsi, and probably some of the more important stuff is going to be in Farsi. We're evaluating the motive for all of this stuff. The motive for the last search, to put information out. The motive for this search. Why is this content in English? And that is because these Iranian resources coming from the Iranian government are not just talking to Iranians, they're talking to the world.
Right. And if they put it in English, their targeted audience obviously is English speakers. And one of the things, whether it's the Iranian post or the U.S. government post, is to look at the dates of the posts and how that has developed. So early on in the news cycle, there was some stuff, on some of the U.S. cheat sites that that Iran blew up their own school. Later on, it was like, okay, wait a minute, we need to investigate this, and we don't think that's probably the case. So again, you gotta, and Iran does the same thing. So
right.
yeah.
So you do have a little time thing in here. You can see sometimes the time on a lot of the posts nowadays, but not always. So if you want to go through the time, a lot of times if you do say, I'm just looking in the past week, it's more likely that there's going to be a little timestamp on there. However, I can guarantee that there's more than just these two posts, because one, we saw one 5 days ago before. So this is an example of the algorithm working against me, in that I'm seeing only a couple of posts when I should see at least one more, at least. And the reason I'm saying that is because right here I see 5 days ago this article. So that should have showed up as well.
And Kirby, I think you raised an excellent point on that. And one of the other things that you can combine this with is also using some of those AI models to also pull.
Mm-hmm. So, absolutely. Yeah. And have the AI model can even map out the changing of sentiment from the single source even. That could be kind of an interesting example of something to do with the AI. All right, speaking of AI, debunking AI fake images and disinformation about the U.S.-Israel war with Iran.
Right. So BBC Verify is a very good source for going to looking and seeing if there's already research done on the topic that you're trying to figure out what is the ground truth. And I do like this resource. Some of the other ones you can use are Snopes. Snopes has been around since at least 2002. And then Snopes, or is it Snopes?
No, I think it's Snopes. Yeah.
Snopes. Okay, Snopes.com. And then you have other resources like Bellingcat. Bellingcat has done a full analysis on the school incident. One of the good differences, though, between Bellingcat and some of the other ones is their emphasis was more on the imagery than on the text. And that is something to keep in mind when you're when you're assessing a piece of information, is what kind of format you're trying to assess, because not every source that you might go to would specialize in that format. Bellingcat has placed an emphasis on being able to do those video and imagery analysis, whereas Snopes a lot of times places more of an emphasis on text. So yeah, and
there's a lot of fact-checking places. Again, we're just bringing up BBC Verify right here, but again, there's a lot of them. It's not just even Snopes, Bellingcat, BBC. There's
a ton, and you have some of them in our knowledge base, which Kirby can maybe share a bit about, and then we're adding more to it specifically on that point.
Speaking of that, Sarah, did you see the facelift the knowledge base got?
Oh, I'd love to see it.
I just gave it a little bit of a facelift. I'm still kind of in the process of doing that. The way that I'm going to show the tab, but it's kind of squishing my image. There we go. Let's go out here. I guess I better figure that out. Anyway, we got a new little facelift going on. We've got, a start here section, a browse the tools. Here's our sponsors, which, by the way, I was going to say today, please visit our sponsors. We have Parabin Corporation and Forensic OSINT. I believe we're going to have a few more sponsors come on, and we are going to kind of explain why we have certain sponsors, because we don't just let anybody come and sponsor us. We really pick them because we love the tool. We love what they stand for. So keep your eyes open for that. But again, in our database, you can go through, this is our featured stuff. Down below, we've got our latest additions, and then we've got browse by category. So for example, there's going to be a few more sections in here as well. So if you wanted to go and see like fact checkers, you can just go to like the all categories section if you want to. And here you can zip these things up, or even just, you're going to have to scroll down. It's going to be one of those dynamic loading things. So you're going to want to load more, but eventually you'll get to the fact check. Or actually the fastest way to do it, which I wish everybody would kind of do a little bit more, is just the browse tools section will just take you. Oh my goodness. Okay. I got to fix that, obviously. There's another way to get to it though. Down at the very bottom. the database, if you just go to the database directly.
Mhm.
So I'm going to load because there's a lot of stuff in this database, but we can go directly into, so for right now it's on facial recognition for who knows what reason, but we're going to go over here. We're going to get rid of that. And we're going to take our category and let's see if do we have fact checker as a category? No, we probably have that as a tag, huh? We'll go filter, tags.
I don't think we can tag yet.
Oh, we better get a tag for that one then. Well, then we'll have to just do a plain old search. Search.
Yes, exactly. Disinformation.
Okay, thanks. Oh yeah, we do have a disinformation category, don't we? I need to use my own tool, I know. Verification and misinformation. There we go.
There you go.
Get there somehow. I bet we better put some disinformation and fact check tags on these, I think probably. But anyway,
I'll do that.
knowledge base. Well, and I'll help you. I'll do it as well. So, because we're giving it a little bit of a facelift, we're kind of like making this hopefully a lot easier to use. And of course, you can go back to the main page again.
So the information verification section that she just showed you has a lot of not just resources that would actually debunk disinformation like Snopes. It has a lot of tools that you can use for if you're doing the analysis yourself, including audio tools, because audio misinformation and disinformation is now a thing where you have people who are doing scams and they're pretending to be somebody else, or they're actually sounding like somebody else with the use of AI.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that is, again, something that you're really kind of emphasizing is that there are some fantastic audio analysis tools out there.
There are, and that's something that sometimes is, I think, overlooked. You know, because we place such an emphasis on text and imagery. But one of the big growing scam fields is somebody getting your voice and then calling a loved one and saying, send money to my bank.
And it's so inexpensive right now. Inexpensive, like dirt cheap.
Yeah.
So something to kind of think about. Okay, so let's go and talk about the AI agents here. I feel like I'm missing a tab. Oh, no, there it is. All right. All right. Disinformation having to do with AI.
Yeah.
Sarah, you found this article about X.
Yeah. So Grok actually early on in the conflict, Grok actually was putting out faulty information, and it was probably because their algorithm they were pulling from live news that was putting out faulty information. It's really important is when you are on a social media platform, and especially a social media platform that is combined with AI, is that you cross check off that platform with other platforms. X had so many images that were false, or even images that were real that they said were false. There was one instance with the burial ground from the girls' school where Grok said that was in Brazil and some other country, and it wasn't. It was in Iran. So you know that's a clear example of a hallucination or misinformation from the LLM itself. So this article delves into some of that, and I think what it's really important is it's very helpful to use artificial intelligence when you are doing these assessments, but make sure that you have guardrails there. And then also, in addition to those guardrails, is make sure that you're using, like 2 LLMs on completely different algorithms just to cross compare.
So, right. And any of the LLMs may have certain things that they're better at and worse at, right?
Yes.
In the case of X again, Grok is part of X, and X is about fast information. Twitter / X has been the fastest thing for over a decade now, as far as getting information, like thoughts from everybody. And so I think that Grok would be naturally the one that would be the most affected by this type of an issue. but it will eventually self-correct, ideally. But again, also there could be biases just in the data it's pulling in, the who owns it, what they're doing lately, what their point of view is, etc. So you want to use more than one. It's just like a search engine. Use more than one.
Right. And one thing I wanted to say about Grok is even though like Grok did have these issues with having a lot of problems at the beginning of the conflict, is Grok, because it is attached to X, also is a very effective tool for pulling data about posts and users on X.
Yeah,
So
and actually being like analyzing huge chunks of data at once, sediment, etc.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
It's really
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right. Well, I believe that's the topics that we had for today. You brought us an AI, some slap of the week that kind of has to do with that. And that has to do with,
In this
go
instance,
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say, in this instance, typically we have, more lighthearted, kind of funny AI slop. This week's AI slop is actually showing how AI slop can be used for propaganda. This is a Iranian government piece of AI slop, and it's showing how it can be used for malign influence activities.
Absolutely. And we're going to leave you with that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.